have got Mr. Jose Blanco, who is the Director of International Sales for Arturo Fuente on the call, and a little bit of a personal hero of mine. We've also got Keith Aherne, who is the Business Development Manager for Tullibardine. So I think the best thing for us to do, Jose, is everyone will have the Don Carlos Robusto, but not everyone will have the short story. So if we start with the Don Carlos, then everyone can get involved with that one. If you want to just explain a little bit about your history in the industry, and then we'll lead into the cigar, then Keith will throw it over to you, and you can take your pick of the whiskies on which one to start off on.
No problem.
Well, first of all, I would like to thank everybody, all the crew, Mitchell's crew, that some of them look suspicious, but I think if they're working with Mitchell, they're all good people. To me, it's an honor. Mitchell and I have been friends for many years. Paul, I know because we have mutual friends in the industry, and he seems kind of okay too. But my story, if I'm going to try to resume it, but it'll probably resume is going to take like 3 hours, so we're just going to make it the short version. I'm fourth generation. My great-grandfather used to smoke tobacco. My grandfather, my father, my cousins all grow tobacco. I started smoking at the age of 14 and a half. My mom was not happy with it and said I had to start smoking when I was 16, but I was still stealing cigars till I was 16 to my father. So this month in a couple of weeks, it'll be 55 years that I've been smoking. I worked for Grupo Leon Jimenez, which had La Aurora for 30 years. Then I retired. And I said, I'm not going to work anymore. But after a month, when my wife in Sweden, a whole bunch of companies started to call me, I went to Joya de Nicaragua, and I was the senior vice president there for 2 years. Then I got a little bit homesick, and we wanted to go back to Santiago. My wife and I started a brand that was doing very, very well. She still handled it, but along came the FDA. And I said, at my age, to put $600,000 or $700,000, and I don't care where you live, I don't trust the government. So then after that, I'm good friends with Ernesto Perez Carrillo, and I worked with Ernie for 3 years. Then my contract was open in August. Then I went back to DR. I inherited farms, business, things like that, and my lawyer used to take care of it, but not only my lawyer, my best friend, he died suddenly. So I had to make a decision and had to take 3 months off. And then Carlito and I have been friends for 35 years. In December, we had dinner. In February and January, so I stopped by the farm. I was moving back here to Europe, but we have some investments, and we live in a nice compound here. Anybody who's on Facebook sees me feeding the ducks at 6 o'clock in the morning. So in March, he made me an offer, and I said, well, I could do 10 more years. I have a degree, and now for my age of 70 to 75, it's going to be a master's, and then from 78 to 80, it's going to be a PhD. And 80, maybe if I'm feeling good, I'll work a little bit. So that's the Reader's Digest short version of it.
Like it.
Now give us the long version, Jose.
No, we will be here for 3 days. You don't want to hear it.
How are you? Nice to see you.
Hey, Mitchell, my brother, how are you?
I'm great, thank you. Great, good to see you. Hello,
no, good to see you.
Good evening, and welcome. Hello, Paul. You look like just a head. You've got no body. You're there. Excellent. Anthony, they've let you out of prison, I see.
Just for today. Just for
today. Excellent.
Special occasion. I've been on good behaviour. Awesome.
Splendid.
So, Jose, sorry.
No, Toby. Oh, you're muted.
Oh, I'm muting.
Nice choice.
Toby's smoking something that somebody gave him that he doesn't even know. So we're all witnesses to if something happens to him. We'll all testify in court.
So, what's going on?
So we are going to start on the Don Carlos Robusto, Jose. So could you tell us a little bit about that cigar?
Well, let me tell you something. Anybody who knows me, and Mitchell and I have always had to say, we agree, sometimes we disagree, but with all respect, I've always considered him a friend, probably one of the most talented people in our industry. Oh, but going to Don Carlos, yeah. Well, you doubt that, Anthony?
No, I always said I'm like the most famous person, but my wife always tells me I'm a nothing. You know, what can I tell you?
They all say that. So the Don Carlos, first of all, it was a cigar that Don Carlos smoked for many, many years. It's a cigar that has what I consider, this is a very personal opinion, the best wrapper in the world, which is Cameroon. The sweetness and the spice of Cameroon, grown in the rainforest of Cameroon, is an amazing cigar. You have people that say, well, they're growing Cameroon. What they're doing is taking a Sumatra seed, growing in Honduras, growing in Nicaragua, growing in Ecuador, which is not bad. But the characteristics of it, it's not the same thing. If you grow it in Ecuador, it's going to be spicy and earthy. If you grow it in Honduras, depending if it's Jalapa or Metepe or Condega, it's going to taste different, and the same thing with Honduras. It's not that it's bad, but it's not true Cameroon. Tomorrow, Mitchell could go as an entrepreneur to Cameroon, grow 3 acres of Cameroon there, and I'm the first one to say Mitchell Orchard is growing Cameroon there. But you cannot allege that you're using a Cameroon wrapper if it's not grown in Cameroon. But going to the point about the cigar, it's a very special cigar. It has that nice bouquet of aroma. It's very balanced. It's very complex. Has the sweetness of Cameroon as soon as you put it in your mouth. It has that nice spice. So it's very balanced. It's very rich. And it's a cigar that you probably, I would say the majority of people could smoke it. It could be a morning cigar. It could be after dinner cigar. It could be an afternoon cigar. And the good thing about it, it pairs up very well with mostly everything. I can't say about gin or vodka or tequila because I don't drink those 3 things. So I would have to hear some of the expertise. Maybe Keith could give a hint on that. But when it comes to pairing and things like that, 2 shots of rum and 2 shots of scotch, and that's about it. So Don Carlos is very unique. Now you take the Don Carlos Reserve. That was the cigar that Don Carlos for many, many years smoked and was not commercial. It was made by one roller. And after making thousands and thousands and thousands, just putting them away for years and years and years, they decided to release it. It has a little bit more of a kick into it, and it also has a little bit of more aged tobacco. But it's phenomenal. In my opinion, anything with Cameroon is just out of this world. But that's just me, an old man.
That's fantastic. So moving over on to Keith, based off that, because I know you haven't quite got the cigars, we did send them, but Royal Mail, as ever, have been as reliable as always. But
it's not that I haven't quite got them. I just haven't got them.
You can enjoy them tomorrow, I'm sure.
No, that's fine. No, it's fine.
Evening, Keith.
I'm good, Mitch. How are you doing?
I'm fine. It's nice to see you. I've just realised that I've known Jose, oh my God, since your La Aurora days, I believe.
Exactly.
I've known you, Keith, since you were a little boy.
That sounds a bit weird. I think about 2000 and 2013.
Well, did I say you were a little boy?
He's still a little boy.
I disagree.
Everyone is to us at our age, Jose.
I don't feel
Don't worry, Mitchell, I'm older than you.
Makes me feel younger. Okay, sorry I interrupted. Carry on, Keith. Tell us about your booze.
Come on, Mitch. Actually, just carrying on from what Anthony was saying, just for everybody listening in, when I actually, obviously I'm not from Scotland, as you can probably tell, but when I actually did move over to Edinburgh in June 2013, it was Mitchell and Ron were actually gave me one of my first jobs in Edinburgh, selling cigars and whiskey. So that basically kind of whetted my appetite for single malt Scotch. And ever since that, I've been a massive fan, trying to learn as much as I can. But yeah, for quite a few years, I worked in retail up and down the Royal Mile, then down in Cambridge for some time. And I was very fortunate to get an opportunity to work for Tullibarden, which was actually, not just saying this, but actually one of my favorite whiskies for some time, even as a customer. Tully Barton always stood out for me as being a whiskey that had three different main points really that I liked about it. Was the diversity of the expressions, the finishes, the consistency of the actual whiskey itself, and the price point, which I have to say has always been exceptionally decent and quite affordable for a dram of that caliber. So yeah, I was very fortunate to get the opportunity to work for Tullibarden, and just 2 years ago I started with them. So I've gone from strength to strength, and I've really enjoyed my time there and spreading the gospel according to Tully B. So you all received your packs except Tobias. So I mean, it's kind of at your discretion how you'd like to taste the whiskies. Obviously, you're in the comfort of your own abodes. But with the Arturo Fuentes and the fact that they are such a lovely, smooth, kind of medium-bodied cigar, and with the consistent 43% ABV of all the whiskies, I think you're pretty much set to go with any of them, really. I'd probably start with the Sovereign and end on the 500. The 225 is quite citrusy, and the 228 is slightly bitter. But yeah, I think possibly starting with the Sovereign, which will be our introductory malt, our signature whiskey, would probably be the best place to start. If you're interested, I'm more than happy to talk a bit about the history of Tullibarden. I don't know if that's something you want to listen to while you're smoking and drinking.
Yes, certainly. Gives a history on Tullibardine as a distillery, and yeah, make mention to the closure and the reopening with the new owners.
Sure, yeah, no problem at all. Well, the distillery, as you'll probably see on the box, is synonymous with the year 1488, which is quite an important year for Tullibarden. It's actually the year that King James IV visited the then brewery that occupied the site Tullibarden was actually built on, to purchase a consignment of beer in celebration of his own coronation at Scone Palace. There's actually quite an interesting point, because it's actually the first legal transaction of a barrel exchanging hands for money in Scotland. And funny enough, it was actually the same King James IV, 26 years later, created the first ever piece of written evidence of whiskey production in Scotland when he commissioned 1,500 bottles of aquavita from a friar John Core. That's actually quite an interesting piece of evidence as well. And the commission quantity does actually give us an insight into the fact that whiskey production was more than likely well established by that year, regardless of the fact that that's the first ever piece of written evidence. Tullibarden itself, well, there's actually some debate over the name Tullibarden and where it came from. One theory is that the distillery was actually named after a chapel in the vicinity from around the mid-1400s, and that the name Tullibarden is actually a colloquial interpretation of Scots Gaelic for Lookout Hill. But the distillery itself didn't come about until about 1947. A guy called William Dem Evans, actually an architect, started experimenting with the water source of the Danny Burn. He found this exceptional minerality in the water, which actually seep from the Ochil Hills, which are formed apparently some 100 million years ago. That water actually takes about 15 years to reach the Danny Burn to the rich rock filtration system. I think it's basalt, red sandstone it goes through. So yeah, having such an abundant resource of rich, mineral-rich spring water, Evans actually purchased the remains of an old brewery that actually stood on that site, and by the end of 1949, Tullibarden Distillery was actually completed with the first spirit produced that year. Actually, the same guy who created Tullibarden, William Dem Evans, was also the architect who designed the Jura and Glenallachie distilleries as well, so it's actually quite interesting. So in 1953, the distillery was sold to Brodie Hepburn, which was a Glaswegian whiskey broker, and stayed with them for nearly 2 decades until the early 70s, when it was acquired by Invergordon. In about 1973, Invergordon underwent a massive reconstruction of the actual distillery, a renovation, and put in an additional 2 stills, bringing the total number up to 4. So 2 wash stills, 2 spirit stills. The distillery was then purchased by White Mackay in about 1993. However, due to the decrease in demand for single malt Scotch in the market, Tullibarden was mothballed along with 6 other distilleries. Mothball meaning that all operations and production ceased at the distillery, and it was closed effective immediately, with all remaining stock left inside the distillery, and actually lay closed for about 10 years. It wasn't until about 2003, a private investor group went under the name the Tullibarden Distillers Group, purchased the distillery and reopened it, with I think, whiskey production starting the same year that they actually purchased it. And by 2008, they'd actually created the highest record of output of raw spirit with about 1.8 million litres. And the distillery itself having probably up to about 2.7 million litres as a kind of max output per year. Now, when these guys actually took over the distillery, they found that a lot of the casks that had been left behind were too old, and some of the whiskies, while could be used for blending, were not ideal for kind of standalone representations of the brand. So basically, an extensive and very expensive recasting operation took place very quickly. But these guys actually laid the foundation of where we are today. The diversity we incorporate into our range. These are the guys who started experimenting with more diverse kind of finishes and breathing life into a brand that effectively had an exceptionally turbulent past. So in 2011, an announcement from Picard Vin Espiritu, owned by Michel Picard, announced that they had purchased the distillery, that they were going to maintain its status as an independent, and we're obviously going to add the family-owned kind of reputation, which would definitely enhance the brand as well. So Tullibarden's previous house style was more adherent to kind of standard Highland characteristics, sherry influences, dried fruit, subtle spices coming through. I found personally that the liquid was always slightly oily. However, under the new family ownership and the new direction, they wanted to retain some of the softer Highland characteristics while creating a more uniform foundation, and that's where bourbon aging came in. So effectively, every Tullibarden that you will taste today has spent some part of its life in a first fill ex bourbon cask. So basically, aging whiskey and bourbon creates really a fantastic foundation for both kind of finishing whiskey and as single cask expressions. There's a beautiful kind of cacophony of flavors of vanillas, toffees, caramels that are associated with it. And that kind of foundation combined with the consistent grain profile of Tullibarden makes for a very specific kind of candied barley note that's consistent through all the whiskies, as well as a very distinct creaminess. So, I mean, today Tullibarden is one of 6 distilleries that all processes involved in the production of our whiskey take place at the distillery, bar malting, which is rarely done in-house. So production, fermentation, distillation, aging, bottling, all happen on site. We also have our own cooperage as well as our own bottling plant. We've 9 washbacks, 4 copper pot stills, about the capacity to house about 20,000 barrels of whiskey. So as I said, we specialize in bourbon aging all our single malts, and yes, we are available globally. So there you go. Have you all opened your Sovereign?
Yeah, I have.
Sorry about that. I've had to move in. The rain has stopped play outside, so just had to move into the lounge. But no, that's it's a really sort of interesting insight into the entire brand. I think for me, I think it is a little bit of a lesser known brand in that respect, but having that history and that kind of real depth of intention from the brand and what they wanted to achieve is a massive thing.
Sure, yeah. As I said, it's had quite a turbulent past, but there has been a kind of consistent vision. Yes, to a certain extent, you're right. It is a lesser known brand, and I suppose with kind of such a varied amount of owners, etc., it never really got the chance to kind of get to maintain the momentum it was trying to create. However, I do feel where we are today is paying respect not only to where we've come from, but we're definitely making progress in the direction that we want to. We're actually in the process of actually rebranding our entire range into more kind of in a more artisanal vein. The 15-year-old that we're just releasing is more of a kind of a sneak peek into the kind of aesthetic that we're going to be pushing forward.
Awesome. Cool. So just to throw it back over to Jose, we've got a few questions. Anyone else, if you do want to ask any questions, please drop them in the chat box and I'll try and keep an eye on them and throw them to Jose and Keith. So we've got a question from Tom. So let's see if we can unmute Tom and see what he has to say.
Hi, Jose.
Hey, what's up, Tom?
It's all good. Firstly, the Reserve is a fantastic cigar, and you're absolutely so right about Cameroon wrappers. I've been, funnily enough, smoking quite a few La Auroras recently, so you should be familiar with those, and they're beautiful as well. My question is, how on earth can I get hold of a God of Fire Seri B? I've had some in the past. I just can't get hold of them.
Look, to be honest, that is a very rare, limited tobacco. Comes out 2 or 3 times a year. Keith Park works out a deal with Carlito. There's a lot of those cigars that has to do a lot with the money that's raised that goes to the foundation. To be honest, I'm going to be frankly honest. I don't remember the last time I had a God of Fire. So, and I could get. So it's hard to get. It's a very unique cigar. It's done well. It's at least in the States, I can tell you, not everybody has it. It's very expensive. Is it worth it? Yes, it is, because it's very old aged tobacco with a great blend. Carlito did an amazing job on that cigar, and it's just phenomenal. It's rich. It's bold. It's unique. It's complex. It's a cigar that you could say, you take off the band and smoke it, you could say it's different. It's like we always say about Fuente. Fuente's not Dominican, Fuente's not Cuban, Fuente's not Honduras, Fuente's not Nicaragua. Fuente's Fuente. The way the Don Carlos and Carlito have blended cigars for years and years was in a totally different way. You could take anything from the 858 to a Don Carlos, to a Hemingway, to a Magnum, to an Opus, and they're all going to have a different taste profile because they have been blended in a totally different way. And the advantage that we have, just to give you an example, we want to go to Nicaragua. If they wouldn't have had that kind of revolution in the pandemic, maybe already we would have been done. But we already have grown 6 crops of tobacco in Nicaragua. They're in warehouses just sitting there for us to use them. So one of the advantages that Fuente has, and anybody that's been there has seen thousands and thousands and thousands of bales of tobacco that are just aging there 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, 20-year tobacco. The great thing is that those very old tobaccos and those very unique shapes are not even commercially sold. Those are cigars that are made for special events for the foundation, because after his family, and of course the company, the most important thing for Carlito is the foundation. They feed 550 children a day. They've graduated doctors, entrepreneurs, lawyers, everything there. And anybody who, I've seen every factory, most of the factories in Cuba, Nicaragua, Honduras, DR, and I can tell you something, and this is not because I'm working with Fuente. There is no factory in the world like Fuente, and there is no farm in the world like Chateau de la Fuente.
Wow. That's sort of, I like the additional romance that you can add to cigar brands, and I definitely think that Fuente has that kind of romance and that theatrical side to the brand almost. So it's definitely.
But you know what also, Anthony, is that people go and see this farm, see this factory, see what we've done. But what nobody remembers, that the Fuentes got burned down in Nicaragua in the revolution in the 70s. Then they go to Honduras and they get burned down also there. And they come back, they try to find where to go, and they establish themselves in Santiago, Dominican Republic in 1980, little by little, living in a little house in Santiago. Don Carlos, his wife, Carlito, some other guy that was working with them, and little by little started. So, it's great to see how far companies have gone because everybody starts small. Mm-hmm. But the struggle, unless you inherit millions or billions, you've got to build it up. So it takes time.
I started in my bedroom, and my cupboard was my first walk-in humidor. A true story.
Yeah, I was just about to throw that back over to you, Mitchell, to sort of say, from such humble beginnings for C.Gars, and we're now celebrating our 23rd anniversary.
Yeah, I don't know what date it is. I think it's this month, isn't it? Well,
It's this month or last month. I don't think we were quite sure the exact date.
No, you can find out. You just check on Company's House, the day of incorporation of C.Gars Ltd. It might actually be the 2nd or 3rd of November, actually. It definitely wasn't September. It was either end of October, beginning of November. Anyway, boring stuff. Keith, I'll tell you something. One of the best tasting events we ever did was when you came to Puffin Rooms. We had a crowded room. Do you remember that evening?
I do. I've been there a couple of times now. It's always an absolute pleasure to be down there, have a reason to come down and see. But yeah, I think that was when we were just after, let me see, the last time I was down with Ron, I think we were just after releasing the 15-year-old. And prior to that, I think we were looking after the New Murray, the 25-year-old, and 228, I believe.
Yeah, that was the one I was at. What was it, the 25-year-old? I couldn't believe the price of it. It seemed to be extremely good value.
Yeah, I think it was RRP and anywhere between around 130 to 145 pound. For a 25-year-old, yeah, it's exceptional whiskey. A fantastic cigar malt. Unfortunately, next year that 25-year-old will be discontinued and replaced with an 18-year-old. I believe it's going to be of the same genetic makeup, as in it will be bourbon rehoused in both Pedro Jimenez and Oloroso. So yeah, no, we're excited. The 15-year-old basically has just replaced the 20-year-old. But yeah, I'd be very sad to see the 25-year-old go. But definitely a good investment for anybody who's interested in.
Oh, you're listening? You're paying attention here, my man?
I've dropped it in
get a few cases in.
I've dropped it in the chat box. We have got some online available, so if you do want to snap one up before it's gone, head on over.
It really is first class. As a cigar malt, actually, it doesn't get much better because it is so smooth and it doesn't overpower the cigar at all. It's a perfect complement. I mean, I'm a bit of a Highland fan anyway, so Tully B is like perfect as a jam for me.
Absolutely. What did you think of the new 15-year-old since it's come out, Mitchell?
I must admit, I haven't had it yet.
Right.
I'm, as you can see, kind of stuck at home most of the time. Sure. I think I live in my study. So I haven't had too many sampling sessions recently. If I'd be sampling on my own, I think they call that an alcoholic. So what can I tell you?
No, I think you like it. If you like the 25-year-old, the 15-year-old again follows in the same vein, an exceptionally smooth single malt. That nice kind of toffee and vanilla elements flowing through, and very rich strawberry notes, strawberries and cream. But a fantastic dram. I know Ron was taken aback by how good it was. But yeah, it's doing exceptionally well. I see you have it online for a very, very reasonable price. Again, a fantastic cigar malt. Anything that's kind of medium bodied goes exceptionally well. Really cuts through anything that's quite spicy with that rich kind of sweetness coming from the whiskey. But if you are tasting the Tullibarden Sovereign at the moment, just a bit of information on that. That is actually our signature whiskey. Effectively, every Tullibarden starts its life as a Tullibarden Sovereign. It's a straightforward bourbon-aged Tullibarden, matured entirely matured for the entirety of its life in first fill X bourbon cask. Quite an easy-going, creamy and light malt. Subtle kind of spice coming through. Bottled at 43%. And a fantastic introduction to the range. 43% for me, I think, is an ideal ABV for any whiskey. So on the nose, you have something it's quite floral and slightly oaky. That vanilla from the bourbon coming through immediately. On the palate, then I get a very distinct kind of boiled sweet pear drop kind of note. Slightly malty, that vanilla coming through again. I usually find boiled sweets as a good tasting note to kind of refer to in whiskies that are relatively young. But then it has quite a short finish of vanilla, subtle cinnamon and spice. But yeah, it's a lovely whiskey, a really good introduction. Won a couple of awards in 2016, 2018, International Spirit Challenge, silver medals. So yeah, we're quite proud of having this as our kind of signature malt.
You just got a thumbs up from Toby, so you're in a good place.
Good man, Toby.
A couple of questions. Tom J, where in the country are you? Because it's daylight there, but I'm in London and it's dark. I mean,
I'm at the top of Hampshire. Well, it's slightly brighter behind me than it is in front of me.
Oh, okay. Nick, nice to see you. I see you've put windows in your boat. Or you're not in the boat tonight.
I'm not in the boat. I did put that on the chat thing. I opted against it.
Is it raining there?
No, actually, it's not bad at all. But this morning it will look terrible out, and I just opted to stay in.
I kind of like you when you're in the upside down capsized boat. You know, I almost don't recognise you.
Jose, you're missing out. It's a beautiful sight. Nick in his upside down boat.
I was so confused. I thought, this is a very strange character. He's in a capsized boat. And then I saw it full picture and I understood.
It's more like a church pews, that sort of thing.
It's very cool, actually. Hi, Karen.
Jose, I'm going to get you to not spill the beans, but talk a little bit about where you first met Mitchell, how you've kind of interacted with him over the years. Because Mitchell speaks very highly of you at all times to me. But
he does?
The details.
Yeah, but behind your back, it's completely different.
You know, I got to be honest. You know, you always hear of the auctions. You would read it on the blog. Cigar Aficionado always would do a big piece. A lot of cigar geeks that I know, I've known people that have bought stuff from Mitchell, and they've asked me to try it, especially some pre-embargo stuff, and I never told Mitchell about this. But, you know, his honesty, his character, the values he has, the love he has for tobacco, I always wanted to meet him. So I think I don't know if it was 2008, 2010, I'm not sure. But we talked a little bit about Cuba, and we talked about Dominican. And I think I gave him a cigar with the 5 different wrappers. I'm not sure if I did. Did I give you the cigar with the 5 different wrappers?
You did, and it was actually at one of the RTDA trade shows, if I remember rightly.
Yes.
In Vegas or New Orleans or somewhere.
Because a lot of people, to be honest, do not know or do not realize the impact of the wrapper. I think it's a big misconception that people have. So my 2 cents on that is that when I was La Aurora, a lot of people would come in and ask all types of questions. So for many years, for the first 2 or 3 years, I did a seminar where everybody would be smoking pure grade. It would be a seco, a viso, and a ligero, and then smoke the blend. But what happened once people started to smoke that pure grade ligero, some people turned green, some people turned kind of dizzy. Some people said, this is better than the shit I'm smoking. So I said, we're going to turn it around. So what happened was that a lot of people would go to the factory and ask us of the impact of the wrapper. So I said to Guillermo one day, why don't we do for the seminars a cigar that has 3 wrappers? Well, Guillermo said, if you're going to do 3, let's do 4. So I said, we're going to do 4, do 5. So let's just say, for the hell of it, you take a same filler and binder on a cigar with a Connecticut wrapper, depending on the priming. The overall flavor and strength is going to be around 20 to 22%. But you take that same filler and binder and you put a ligero corojo wrapper on it, it's going to be between 55 to 60. But you take that same blend in a Lancero 7x38 and you put, let's say, a Habano Viso, it's going to be around 75 to 80 because it's the ratio of filler to binder to wrapper what it is. So people think the bigger the cigar, the more flavor and the more strength. And it's not true. So if you talk to different manufacturers, some people will say it's a little bit less, a little bit more. But at the end of the day, the wrapper, first of all, is the most expensive thing on the cigar. But it's the part of the cigar that has the most amount of influence in it. And to be honest, every company wants to sell cigars, but my personal opinion is that very rare, you can make exceptions of the companies who have really wanted to invest in education. The more educated the consumer is, it's better for the retailer. The better educated that the retailer is, it's better for the distributor. The better educated the distributor is, it's going to be easy for him to conduct business. And this is not I'm not criticizing companies. I'm criticizing the whole industry. Because a pro cigar, I used to say it and say it and say it. Guys, the bottom line, of course, we have to make money, but we have to educate. So what I would do is I would arrive, let's say, in Dallas on a Sunday. I would visit 4 or 5 shops in the day. And at the night, I would do a blending seminar or a tasting seminar every single day. And on Saturdays, it would be 1 to 4. Then we would travel an hour and do 7 to 10 or 7 to 11, whatever it is. I firmly believe, this is my personal opinion, that we need more education, because education brings everybody to another level. That's my humble opinion.
I completely agree with you, Jose. Just going back to rappers, as a Havana cigar aficionado, I find it quite fascinating how on New World cigars, rappers have such a huge influence on flavor, whereas on Havanas, they have just about zero influence on flavor. You know, the Cubans say the wrapper is just for the eye. It's just pure aesthetics, just to dress the cigar up. And we've done tests over the years. Many years ago, we did extensive testing, taking wrappers off and smoking the same cigars just with the binder on. And, you know, apart from obviously it was bloody messy and very smoky, you couldn't taste any difference with or without the wrapper. It's fascinating. It's obviously a completely different strain of leaf, I suppose, in Cuba to the New World.
But you also have to remember, and you know this probably better than I do, you know, in Cuba, the way they blend cigars is by zones. You have what, you know, San Luis Martinez, you have Huerta Arriba, you have Huerta Abajo, you have different parts of the country. And to be honest, I don't want to get into the details of that because to me, it's very, you can't talk about, you know, a different country. When people say, well, this cigar is better than other, or this country produces cigars better than other, my 2 cents on that is no cigar is better than other.
No, they're any
cigars, different. They're just totally different. 100%. This is my opinion.
100% agreed.
So I'm not sure where everyone is in regards to smoking the first cigar, but the second cigar that we've got is the Fuente Short Story. And I didn't know, Jose, if you wanted to talk a little bit about how that cigar came to be and a little bit of the story behind it.
Well, to be honest, I'm not going to lie about that. I've heard different, I would just say, stories about it. The only thing I could tell you, it's a very limited edition. It doesn't come out a lot. I would say it's, even though it's a small cigar, but if you smoke it properly, it's a cigar that's an hour smoke. And there are cigars, maybe that is a Robusto 5x50, that you could smoke it even in a faster. To me, with that Cameroon wrapper, you're going to get that sweetness. I think it has a little bit more of a kick, personally, to me, than the Don Carlos, depending which of the Don Carlos. And talking about that, one of the things, and I don't want to change the subject, but I can't leave this out, is that people, let me tell you, you have 2 types of smokers. You have the person that does not retrohale, and by far, don't anybody get me wrong. If you don't retrohale, you're not doing anything wrong, but you are missing the boat, because what you pick up in your mouth, it was sour, bitter, salty, or sweet. But when you're retrohaling, not that I say it, scientists say there's more than 300 in different notes. So when you're saying, well, I'm picking up sweetness, but what sweetness are you picking up? Is it the sweetness of a milk chocolate, or are you picking up the bittersweet of a Godiva? When people talk about spice, but what are you picking up? Is it a black pepper, a white pepper, a red pepper? When people say to you, well, I'm picking up, let's say, notes of cedar. No, you're not, because you don't eat cedar or you don't eat leather. It's a note from the subconscious that goes to the brain. It reminds you of something. Even though I've seen, to be honest, people who have reviewed cigars that I say, like I saw a review many years ago that said the cigar was medium to full, bada bing, bada dang, and on the finish, it had a hint of blueberry muffin. And I said to myself, I mean, this year will be 55 years smoking. Unless Mitchell, who's kind of an expert in my opinion, has picked up blueberry muffin. If he says he's picked up blueberry muffin, then I believe there's blueberry muffin.
The day I say I can taste blueberry muffin in the cigars, the day I'm retiring.
I think that is a disagreement that we've had a couple of times, Mitchell, where with my reviews, I do try and emote as many flavors that are similar to things that I sort of memories of flavors that you get, and you can compare those towards cigars. But I think I tried to get a review from Mitchell once, and he just sat there and said, it tastes like a very nice cigar, which I was like, maybe my video should be a lot shorter, and I'll just say that. But
your videos actually are really good, and people really compliment me a lot on them. I think I've mentioned that to you a few times, and that's a fact. All over the world, you get more compliments than me, which is fine. But I'm very basic. For me, a cigar tastes of tobacco, and I get the basic flavors: salty, sweet, bitter, sour. I can pick up notes of earthiness and peppers and so on, but it's very basic, and I cannot describe a cigar in finite details of foods or wines, because I've never got that, and I don't know any connoisseur that ever has, that I've mixed with, and I mix with a lot of serious cigar connoisseurs. So I suppose horses for courses. Maybe a different generation are experiencing different flavors, or it's reminiscent of different flavors, but I think probably Jose comes from that same school of it's a basic set of flavor characteristics that you experience, as opposed to defined food terms and wine terms or whatever.
No, but it's true. And if you look at the industry, people could criticize Cigar Aficionado all they want, but if it wasn't for Cigar Aficionado, we would not be where we are. Because the truth is, if you look before 1992, it's more or less what you were addressing. Well, the cigar, I like it, don't like it, things like that. But the people that came up with all this terminology was them. And Cigar Journal and all I mean, we have to face it. Our industry has changed. We saw the boom. We saw what happened after the boom. We saw the boutique guys coming in, some of them making very unique cigars. Then you have the companies that have been around for years doing great stuff, Padron, Fuente, us, and other companies. Because at the end of the day, let's be honest, I can make a cigar, anybody can make a cigar, it'll sell one time. But I've always said it comes out to 3 words: consistency, consistency, consistency. If you're not consistent of what you do, you will never be successful. And the other thing is, at the show, I would always remember these new guys would come up with a little bag. They know I smoke everything. Oh, Mr. Blanco, could you please smoke this cigar when you have time? Tell me your thoughts. And I would ask them, what are you looking for? Oh, my cigar is going to taste like so-and-so or so-and-so and so-and-so. And I would tell them, but that cigar is already successful. Why don't you be more creative? Because the first thing you're telling me, oh, I'm going to make a cigar that tastes like an Opus X or like a Fuente, or let's say like some famous Cuban cigar. No, that is not it. You have to be creative. You have to be talented. You have to be genuine. You have to work with tobaccos and have patience. And you know it, Mitchell, because you've done a lot of private projects. It's trial and error. It takes time. Every time I hear somebody, oh, I was down in Nicaragua and we got the blend done in 3 days. And I say to myself, like, wow, man, you're a genius, because I've made blends that have been very successful, which has taken me 1.5 years. But look, everybody, the industry is doing great, even though with all the things that's going on with COVID, people are smoking, people are enjoying. We're not, giving hugs and being, together, but we're doing the virtual, and everybody is enjoying the time. This is a great time. Let's say it's not such a great time because of COVID, but before COVID, it was a great time for cigars. There's a lot of excitement in the industry. People are traveling to Nicaragua, to Cuba, to Dominican, to Honduras, to Ecuador, to Peru, to everywhere, because people want to learn. And right now, every factory is selling everything they can make, and there's a shortage of everything.
Yeah, that's a fact.
So,
as well.
Let's not leave Keith sitting there lonely without any cigars for very much longer. Let's get him back involved in the call. So to move sort of on through the selection of the 4, Keith.
Sure. Well, I think probably the next whiskey to go to would probably be the 225. Let's just do them in ascending order. The 225 basically is not a 225-year-old whiskey. The 225 actually denotes the amount of liters that are in the barrels the whiskey is actually finished in. So our 225 is our first venture into wood finishing. So this whiskey starts its life as a Sovereign, straightforward bourbon-aged whiskey. So yeah, it spends the majority of its life in first fill ex bourbon cask. Then it is finished for an additional year in 225-litre Sauterne barriques from Chateau Suderio. Sauterne obviously being a French street wine from the Sauterne region, and bottled at 43%. Now this whiskey is a fantastic example of the impact wood has after just 1 year on something you've just actually tasted. So there's a beautiful citrusy profile, a lot of tropical fruit coming through, and just, as I said, amazing example of how a year in a different cask can influence a whiskey. As I said, that has previously started its life as a sovereign, has just been aged for an additional year in a different cask. Completely changes the flavor profile altogether. Again, bottled at 43%. For me, you get that lovely sweet barley on the nose again, and definite citrus fruits coming through, particularly lime, I find. A slight bit of pepper. Then on the palate, that citrus evolves, more kind of orange peel, etc. That tropical fruit coming through again. However, the finish on this whiskey I find is infinitely longer than the Sovereign, and that beautiful creaminess coming through. Nice bit of spice. Now I know you touched on notes, tasting notes in regards to people over embellishing them. That does happen within whiskey, and there are kind of set notes that we adhere to and agree on. But it's always an important fact to remind people that, you know, as with cigars, as with whiskey, everything is subjective, and it's how you enjoy it. I mean, for me, it's the same as music. You like what you like. You can't be wrong. So I don't ever like the kind of pressure people feel to kind of immerse themselves in fantastic comparisons of savory sweets and stuff like that. Whiskey is what it is to you. It's an enjoyable, pleasurable drink and should be drank any way you see fit. But yeah, for me, the 225 in the wood finish range is one of my favorite. I just really like the freshness of the whiskey, with single malts making more of an appearance in mixology and replacing a lot of bourbon in whiskey cocktails. This is a fantastic whiskey to use in a whiskey sour, a lime whiskey sour specifically. Again, this is an award-winning whiskey. It's won 2 awards in the International Spirits Challenge, both in 2016, 2018. Mitchell has it for an exceptionally reasonable price of $34.99 online at the moment, which I highly recommend you jump on board and get a bottle of it. But yeah, beautiful stuff, I have to say, and a really good step into the wood finish arena after the introduction of the Sovereign.
I'm just going to stick the 225 in the chat box. So add it to your shopping cart, everyone. Look, we're going to create quite an interesting shopping cart after tonight. It'll be full of Fuente, full of Tullibarden. Everyone will be ticking all the boxes. The orders team will be happy tomorrow. They quite like picking the nice stuff.
Just another point, actually, I forgot to touch on. The 225, as I said, it's been aged in 225-litre Sauterne barriques. As I said earlier on, we're actually owned by a French wine family. So the Sauterne barriques are actually our own. So we've just moved them from a winery over in France over to Tully Barton in Blackford. So it's nice that we can actually kind of self-supply with our own wood.
That keeps a sort of tap on the quality control from things that can sometimes be outside of your control.
Absolutely, and it maintains a consistency, which is massively important. Yeah.
Paul, did you ever deal with Fuente cigars when you were over in Australia?
It's JC Newman with the distributors for Arturo Fuente internationally at that point in time. So I was dealing with Bobby and Eric Newman and bringing their range of cigars in with Arturo Fuente into Australia.
Were they popular in Australia?
Yeah, they were, because this was the early, just after 2000. So they were winning all the awards, and the Opus X were coming out at that stage. So
yeah,
they were one of the first non-Cuban cigars that we started bringing in with La Aurora, Leon Jimenez, JC Newman, Arturo Fuente, with the 4 initial cigars that we started before we actually got bought out by Swedish Match in the Australian market.
I remember the first time I smoked an Opus X, and it was actually in Florida. I don't know what I was doing there. I think I had a girlfriend there around about 2000. And until that point, I really wasn't a New World smoker at all. I mean, virtually never. And I smoked this cigar and I was just amazed with it, the depth and complexity in that blend. I was like, now I get it. You can make a New World cigar that has the same complexity and depth of a Cuban cigar. And until then, I thought it's impossible. I thought anything New World cannot develop in flavor as you smoke it in the way that we know Cuban cigars, if they're made correctly, should develop in 3/3, basically. But it just blew me away. I can't think actually what Opus X it was now. It's too long. I'm getting old. My memory's going, but it was pretty fantastic. Of course, I've smoked quite a few Opus X since then, and yeah, the view is the same. They really are in the super premium category. I don't think it gets much better when New World is concerned. Perhaps Padron are way up there on the same level, and I suppose just below there, I'd look at Davidoff. Sort of massive company, massive portfolio, also in the super premium, but not quite as special as the top Padrons and the Fuente, particularly Opus X range and some of the other top limited editions. But they really, I don't know, their game was good then. They've upped their game beyond belief. The last couple of years, some of the limited editions that have come out, Jose, have just blown us away. Presentation and blending and wrappers, just magnificent. Really something special. You know, God bless Carlito. He really is. He is a god in our business. Unbelievable, man.
You know, it's good. I wasn't going to mention Opus unless somebody brought it up, and I'm going to tell you something. What people don't understand is the story behind Opus. And I wish Carlito would be here, and he probably will say it one day. You know, when that cigar came out, and everybody knows it, it had two big dealings. First of all, his other friends that had factories there, nobody believed that it was grown in Chateau de la Fuente, because a lot of people don't understand that farm used to be from Angel Oliva. Not Oliva cigars, but Oliva tobacco. They grow all the tobacco in Ecuador. So there was a lot of controversy that it was from Nicaragua, there was from Ecuador, there was this. Then the lawsuit came from the Mondavis and the Rothschild that cost them all the money. I think it was like $3.5 million. But it's like Carlito says, it gave them $50 million of publicity. But to be honest, it doesn't taste like any Fuente cigar or a Dominican cigar because that soil, that seed, that they use there, Opus has its own identity by itself. It's a cigar that you smoke it and you can say, well, what did I compare for? You can compare like a Magnum R from us or the Hemingway with somebody else that's using True Cameroon, and it can have certain similarities. But Opus, in my opinion, after smoking 55 years, and I gotta be honest, now that I'm smoking it more than before, I've really gotten to really identify with it because I had the privilege of smoking the original Opus because next to my farm in Tamboree, we had a lot of rollers. Tamboree is famous for rollers. So when they started with the project, I remember a guy called Juanito says, Jose, you got to try this cigar. It's new from Fuente. And when I smoked it, I said, oh my God, this is a powerhouse. What is it? He says, they're not telling us anything. But at Fuente, everything is like the CIA. Everything is very, very hush-hush. Then, of course, it came out in '94 and all the awards. But to be honest, the work that Carlito and Don Carlos put into get that wrapper, and to be honest, you know why we don't have a lot? Because the yield is not so much on it. It's a very hard wrapper to grow. But they keep it limited. It's done well. It's given us a lot of awareness, and it is an amazing cigar. The 20th anniversary, I mean, was great. The one they did now for the Middle East, I mean, Amor del Desierto, I mean, the Angels share. I mean, it's a very unique cigar, and I agree with you. It's in the category of very, very unique cigars by itself.
Well, I'll tell you the most unique cigar that I've smoked, Jose, and in fact, it was probably in the top 3 cigars that I've smoked in my life was when I did an event for Fuente with Hublot watches, and they'd made a collaboration, a few different sizes, a Fuente with Hublot, And I smoked this Churchill, and it just blew my mind. I've never tasted a sweeter tasting blend in my life. It was literally incredible. I smoked 4 of them at this event, one after another, and one on the way home in the car. It was absolutely unbelievable. I don't know what they put in that blend, but it was magnificent.
Well, I didn't have the privilege to smoke it. When I go to Santiago, I'm going to see if Carlito has some of them, because he always keeps stuff that does very well. It goes for charities. But that one, I'll say, Papo, I need one of those cigars. He says, why? Because Mitchell Orchard was raving about it. And Mitchell doesn't rave about a lot of stuff.
Really don't. Trust me, I'm a cigar merchant. You need to get that cigar to try. It's really something special.
Awesome. Cool. Okay, so again, we're progressing on. I think we've still got 2 more of the Tullibardens to go. So Keith, back over to you.
Sure, yeah. Moving on to the next Tullibarden. Hopefully where you are in your cigars right now, it's a little bit more full flavored. So this whiskey should complement it nicely. The Tullibarden 228 is our second expression or wood finish range. Again, it's another wine finish. The Tullibarden 228 again has been aged in first fill ex-bourbon cask for the majority of its life, and then moved for an additional year to 228 litre Pinot Noir cask from Chateau de Chassagne and Montrachet. So beautiful red wine influence in the whiskey. Now, I mean, red wine for me, it doesn't come across directly as a red wine flavor in the whiskey, but it definitely elevates the flavor. It's quite rich, spicy, quite delicate on the nose, but a massive amount of flavor on the palate. Again, a fantastic example of just how an additional year in a different cask can influence the flavor of a whiskey. On the nose for me, it's quite floral, subtle red berries coming through, and that beautiful sweetness and familiar kind of vanilla. Again, on the palate, more kind of forest fruits and darker fruits, a kind of bitterness that I'd associate with kind of dark chocolate, our signature vanilla, a nice little bit of honey. On the finish, though, I get a lovely, rich, kind of bold finish, subtle raspberry jam, and then a little bit of clove, but definitely one of my favorite Tullibardens, a fantastic standalone whiskey. And I'd say, yeah, where you are in your cigars, it'd be a nice compliment flavor-wise. Again, this whiskey has won a variety of different awards, ranging from the IWSC to the International Spirits Challenge. So yeah, it's done exceptionally well. Again, this is at a very reasonable price online at C.Gars at $34.99. But yeah, I hope you enjoy it.
Jose, are you a whiskey drinker?
To be honest, look, I'm. Do you know Chinese?
I asked him this question.
Mitchell, do you know Chinese?
No.
I don't know a lot about. Look, I was very clear on that. I'll have 2 shots of a good rum. I'll have 2 shots of scotch or whiskey, and I don't like vodka. I don't like gin. I don't like tequila. So, if the spirit business would have to count on me, you guys would all be out of jobs. It's not my thing. I'll have 2 drinkers about that. But I want to ask Keith a question, sure, which I find very interesting. You talked a lot about the finish, and I talk about in my seminars about the finish because people see the reviews. I'm talking about cigars, and I want you to elaborate on that. People see a review that says, well, the cigar was medium body. It has some sweet notes of cocoa, some earthiness, some spice, and it had a long finish. So when I ask people in the seminars, what do you understand by finish? People say, well, I have to smoke the whole cigar. In my opinion, one inch max smoking the cigar, you're going to know if it has a long finish, a short finish, no finish, or a bad aftertaste. I consider a good finish when your lips are tingling, when you have totally balance in your mouth. So trying to learn about you, which somebody says you're a master. I don't know if it's true or not. What do you, is finish for a cigar the same as spirits?
To a certain extent, yes. Finish would be, in my opinion, the length and breadth of flavor that would be left in the residual flavors after, a mouthful of whiskey. So after each individual mouthful, how long does that flavor resonate in your palate?
Yeah, like it lingers.
Absolutely. However, the obvious difference between the fact that cigars and whiskey are they're 2 completely different products. Obviously, the intensity of cigar, the heat, etc., how the tobacco loosens the longer you smoke it, that the flavor will intensify towards the end of a cigar. Whereas with whiskey, it's, you know, each sip effectively will have the same finish.
Mitchell, your opinion on the finish? I would like to hear it.
I concur with you exactly. The finish is the lingering flavors on the palate in between puffs, if you like. And yeah, you experience that from the first inch of the cigar onwards. And exactly what, as Keith said, the drinking whiskey is a different experience because it's linear. Every sip is tasting basically the same, correct?
Exactly.
Whereas with the cigar, it's developing throughout. So the finish is changing, but you can experience it straight away.
For you, do you find the finish different, Mitchell? Do you find that the finish or a cigar intensifies in flavor towards the end? I mean,
yes, absolutely.
Even though I have to say something, Mitchell could testify, and many of you also, how many times have you smoked a cigar? All of a sudden, let's say a 6-inch cigar, the first 3 inches are phenomenal, and all of a sudden goes totally flat.
Well, actually, my experience is more the other way around. I can smoke half the cigar, and it's like nothing, and you're about to give up, and you take another draw, and it's like, oh, booms into life.
You know what? That happens, Mitchell. I'll explain why. It's when the roller, okay, let's say I make the blend, or Carlito, or Ernesto, whoever it is. It's a formula. Certain percentage of ligero, certain percentage of viso, certain percentage of seco. If the roller at that time does not position the leaves correctly, it will totally change the blend. So when this is my opinion on it, that's what I've learned in time.
Yeah, 100% agreed. 100%. I actually did many years ago the Henke Kellner masterclass of blending in Dominica, which was phenomenal because we were given one cigar after another just made with the single leaves and then combining them, and you're testing them throughout to see the flavor characteristics. And it's interesting, so, you know, you'll try one with just Viso and you'll go, wow, that's really good. But as, of course, you start smoking it, you go, oh, actually, it's not that good. You know, then it's the next one with just Ligero and you're like, whoa, that's strong. You know, and as they start adding in the extra leaves and the blend starts to come together and harmonize, your palate gets used to it and you go, ah, I get it. It really is a blend. It's all the ingredients making up that mash of flavors that give you the flavor explosion, the flavor characteristic. It was quite fascinating, absolutely amazing, especially as he talks you through the whole process of it. You know, I was mesmerized with him, absolutely mesmerized.
I used to do it before, but like I said previously, a lot of people, you know, we start with the different types. We would do the ligero, the viso, the seco. We start with the seco, they're okay. The viso would be okay, but when it got to that ligero, especially I was using Corojo ligero, they went like, wow. And that's why I changed it to talk about all the different characteristics and to bring it. It's like when I'm doing the seminar, I ask people, okay, you have your filler, your binders, and your wrappers. So what are the 6 elements that a blend needs? And people say size. I say, well, size matters, but that's not that. The band that. I said, look, it's very easy. When you're making a cigar, there's 6 elements you have to look at. First of all, flavor. You get the flavor correct, then you go to strength/body. Then you have to get the aroma. Those 3 things are not easy to get, but out of the 6 elements, the easiest. Where does the thing starts to get complicated? It's when you have to go to the 4th element, which is complexity. It doesn't matter how good a cigar is, if from start to finish, it's the same flavor, the same strength, the same notes, it becomes a good, boring cigar. So let's say you accomplish those 4 things. Then comes in that a lot of people don't understand, which is balance. Balance is like a symphony where all the notes have to be in place. How many times have you smoked a cigar, all of a sudden it hits a high note, then maybe half an inch later, it goes all the way down, gives you a low note. And the last thing is the finish. So a cigar to have the perfect blend has to have the flavor, the strength, the aroma, the complexity, the balance, and the finish. And to be honest, that's what astonished me when people say, I was in Nicaragua, Honduras, and Dominican Republic, and in 3 days I got the blend done.
Yeah, it's hysterical. The last cigar we blended took about 6 months, which is a world record for us, I can tell you. Very difficult. Did you do the blending for La Aurora when you were there?
That's where we started. Then I did it for Joya de Nicaragua. 2 years I did it when I had my brand, but the FDA screwed everything up. I was not going to put all that money. And then with Ernesto, I did it for 3 years. A lot of them in Switzerland, Canada, all over.
Of course.
It's a very, very tool. And I'll tell you something, and you and I talked about that. As soon as we're traveling and I go there, we will arrange for me to travel with every of you guys and set up or dinners or seminars, because we need people to get educated. And because your country has been so pro-Cuban, which is, it's okay, but we have to make people understand there's other cigars out there that are great. And I know that our products is just as good as any cigar that's out there.
Agreed. Yes, well, as soon as we get back to normal, we'll definitely be hauling you over here, I'm sure, which I can't wait. So I was interviewed by a South African radio station 2 weeks ago, and one guy came on and he was raving about La Aurora cigars. So I just thought I'd mention that, because you were obviously the guy that was responsible. And I forgot that you worked for Ernesto. Yeah, I mean, you really worked with some of the greats. Unbelievable. What a career.
I know, and if you look at it, I had the privilege to be Grupo Leon Jimenez, even though I had different things. I was head of sales for Presidente Beer. A year I was head of sales for Marlboro Cigarettes. Then they took me over to La Aurora. I was the director of sales, one of the master blenders. I retired. Then I go to Joya de Nicaragua, which is the oldest cigar factory in Nicaragua. Then I did my own thing for 3 years, doing great, but when M&I said FDA, not. And then I went to work with another master, which I learned a lot too, which was Ernesto. And now with Carlito, I mean, I don't want to brag about this, but I could say that I've been a lucky guy, because I've worked with great people. Plus, I've had a great mentor, which I talk to him every 3 weeks, which is Benji Menendez, which is the last of the living legends. When you sit down and you talk with Benji Menendez, he's the most humble and honest man. And people don't remember, he was a multi-millionaire's family in Cuba in the 50s. They were owned of Montecristo, Paul Larrañaga, and H. Upman. And he left Cuba with $100. And he went to Spain, then he went to Brazil, then was vice president of General, then went to Altades, then came back to General. So what a career. And 84 years, we've had him on our show 2 times. And it's just amazing, the knowledge and the history of this man. We've wanted him to write a book, but for him, it's kind of hard, and we respect that. But I know you've met him and you've talked to him also.
I think I'll switch it round and just say, I think all these people that you've worked with over the years have also been very lucky to have you with them.
That's not what they say.
I really mean it. I really do, sincerely. I think Toby's got a question.
He has. Let's throw over to Toby. Paul, could you unmute him for me? Okay.
Not for too long, though, because Toby talks forever.
Okay.
Looks like he may have frozen, unless he's sitting very, very still.
Toby, how do you do that? You're so good.
He's paralyzed by that.
I do, and unfortunately, it looks like I'm going to be break. Sorry, guys.
You're back.
You're back. Toby, if you type it in the comments, possibly. No, you're back. You're back. Go for it. Go for it.
I'll do that. I should do that. Sorry, guys.
Oh, we can hear you.
We can hear you now. We can hear you.
Oh, hello. So,
yeah, there we go.
5 seconds. So, Mr. Blanco, you might know my friend Judd Weisgal from. He used to be in Philadelphia at Holt's. They used to have their meetings, and I organized a really nice tour around Scotland for him. That was one of my companies, the American guy, and he sent me a box of Opus X A's. And, 11 cigars in a box, not 10. It really needs a little compartment for the Bovida pack. Absolutely amazing. So he sent me this box to thank him, and like, blimey, that's worth more than my entire work on that trip. And I started to smoke these, and they're like, oh, what's this? I don't really know. It's long. It's an A size, so it's like
It's a 9.25. It's a 9.25
and
by
the build up
47.
and the construction and everything. They one of the best. They absolutely gorgeous. They were as good as any cigars, if not better, that I've smoked in my life. So happy days. Unfortunately, I smoked the entire box, all the 11 of them. Maybe shared one, but they were fantastic. So that was really, really.
Share it with me, Toby.
Kobe,
Well, I can't go back in time, but next time.
Toby, let me tell you something, and a lot of people know this. Not only are the tobacco 6-7 years old for Opus, but when the Opus are made, they go into the aging room over a year. And some edition, it's 2 years, 3 years. So the A is a fantastic cigar, very hard to get. It's 9.25 by 47. I got to be honest, my favorite size is a Corona Gorda 5.5 by 46. I'm a big fan of Lanceros, Petit Coronas. After an hour or so, it's not my thing. But for anybody who's willing to watch a football game, a basketball game, has the patience to smoke for close to 3 hours, I congratulate. So, Toby, you're my new hero.
I'm not sure about that. You are my new hero, my old hero, as in my, not as age, but as a person. Giants of the industry. But yeah, the problem with these big Vitolas that you have to commit to them. I used to have time, so it was amazing.
Well, I'm glad you enjoyed it.
I've got a little thing, Jose, and it's, you mentioned from an education standpoint, and it's about educating cigar purchasers and people who enjoy this hobby. Retrohaling, you did touch on it ever so slightly, but for people who aren't quite sure, or because I always think I'm doing it and then feel like I'm doing it wrong, and I don't know if you could give us a little sort of cheats way to retrohale, possibly.
No, it's like sneezing, to be honest. It's like sneezing, and to be honest, it's good for the nasal. I'll tell you one thing. I've done these blending seminars that I've done about 1,500 in probably 27, 28 different countries. So sometimes I would go there and ask people, how many people retrohale here? I went to events with 40 people that nobody said, inhale. I said, no retro. What's retro? You blow it through your nose. So what I would tell people when they're smoking a cigar with the 5 wrappers, probably on the second wrapper, I'll say, okay, guys, let's do this. Take a couple of puffs, keep in your mind the notes that you're picking up, and now retrohale and tell me what you're picking up. And a lot of people will tell me, it's like smoking 2 different cigars. Now, I have to admit there's people that cannot retrohale, and there's nothing wrong with it. Because what people don't understand, the taste is subjective, what you drink, what you smoke, if it's hot, if it's cold. And I ask people, what's the only thing that can ruin a cigar that was rated 100, that's going to draw perfect, that's going to taste perfect? People will say, my lighter might not work, the draw is bad, the humidity is bad. No, there's only one thing that can ruin a perfect cigar. You know what it is? Does anybody know the answer?
A bad draw.
No, remember, it was perfect. The only thing that can ruin a perfect cigar, Mitchell and my friends, is smoking it next to an asshole.
I like that. I do like that. That's great.
You're gonna have to quote that, Anthony.
Yeah, I'll remember that one next time I'm in the lounge and we have people close to me. Is this the reason why? Do I need to move? Is it going to taste nicer over there? Brilliant. So, Keith, I think let's move on to the final whiskey in the 4.
Yeah.
I think people are sort of getting towards the end of their cigars as well, so I think it's the perfect time for that one.
Absolutely, yeah. The 500, as I said, it didn't really matter what way we actually tasted the whiskeys tonight, because the Arturo Fuente is so smooth, with such an easy draw on it. But I would specify that the 500 is a perfect whiskey to end on out of the 4. The Tullibarden 500 has been matured in first fill ex-bourbon casks. After its initial period in these casks, it's then split down and rehoused in a combination of Pedro Jimenez and Oloroso sherry butts. And this is what gives the whiskey its beautiful kind of nutty brown color. Now, that's aged for an additional year. Now, for me, PX is kind of sickeningly sweet, like I'd nearly compare it to liquid candy for us, and Oloroso can be exceptionally dry, but together they give it this fantastic kind of well-balanced, smooth, rich kind of sweetness. On the nose, you instantly get this beautiful kind of brown sugar, butterscotch, and toffee apple kind of sweetness. On the palate, kind of stewed fruits, cinnamon, fig, just all these kind of flavors you'd associate with autumn. And then again, quite a long creamy finish. Almost kind of got that candied almond kind of sweetness, borderline marzipan that you do find in a lot of sherry bruisers. What I love about this whiskey is there is 2 different sherries in it, but that backbone of vanilla really kind of sets the stage and gives it this beautiful foundation for all the other flavors to build upon. This whiskey, in my opinion, is richer, more robust than the other 3 that you've tasted tonight. But I have to say, I think it's actually the smoothest out of all 4. But yes, a beautiful whiskey. And again, a fantastic price, $34.99 on the C.Gars website. But coming into the colder kind of weather, this is a fantastic whiskey for Christmas, autumn. And to me, really, it is kind of Christmas cake in a bottle. But yeah, a beautiful dram. I'd say it's a perfect accompaniment to the end of that cigar I'm not smoking.
Why are you not smoking?
Royal Mail, Mitchell.
Royal Mail.
We sent it to him.
Sorry, Keith.
I'm only joking. It's fine. It's fine. I'd be outside freezing my ass off if I was smoking. So
You need to smoke inside.
No. Unfortunately, I'd be shot dead.
Me too. I've been flitting in and out, and it's between the rain.
I know, you're like a ninja, so yeah, Jesus Christ.
Yeah,
I had a problem once smoking inside. It was terrible. I had to get rid of my wife, divorced her. Got a good wife now. She lets me smoke inside, no problem at all. True story.
What we'll do is, when the video's uploaded, you can sit and watch the video back and smoke the cigars on your own.
Yeah, you can Photoshop them in or whatever it is.
Yeah, I'm sure I can work it out. I can do some movie magic indeed.
Anthony, you look like something from Ghost Adventures, on late night TV.
I'm never sure if it's a compliment from you. I can never tell. Brilliant. Well, I think that's kind of like, we've covered pretty much everything. I don't know whether, Jose, was anything that you wanted to add? I know with the blending seminars, it is something that we'd, as soon as we are able to get you over here, it's something that we'd very much be interested in doing. But no, it's hopefully sometime next year would be very nice. Fingers crossed.
For sure, next year. And, Mitchell and I, we always talk, have a nice conversation at the show. And I've always, Joe Phillips and Frank Seltzer and those guys talk very highly of Mitchell. And actually, I learned a lot about Mitchell through Joe Phillips, which is a good friend of Mitchell. They go back a long time. He goes to, and Frank Seltzer and those guys, because he goes a couple of times a year to London for his insurance business. And every time I go to the show, Mitchell always is very kind to give me a couple of cigars. He always gives me good cigars. He doesn't give me a shitty cigar. And I appreciate it. Look, I look forward to this because I think that we have a great brand. We have a great distributor, and you guys do a fantastic job there. Paul, I've known about him for many years from his days. We have a mutual friend in Australia, which is... he has a good palate. Bruce has a good palate. He's a good guy. But I know that when we go there and people hear me and ask me questions, always respectful, because like I told Paul, if anybody asks me any questions, like on our show, sometimes they bring up questions when they say, well, this company does this to the wrapper, that. The only thing I answer is no hablo inglés. Because what people don't understand is that some people, especially on social media, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, they badmouth the cigar. And I've been in shops and I've told this to people, look, that's not correct of you, and I'll tell you why. That guy grew that tobacco, aged that tobacco, blended that tobacco, came out to sell it. It might not be your cup of tea, but don't badmouth it. Because at the end of the day, taste is subjective. So that, and something I criticize a lot of people, what people go into a lounge and see somebody having a Diet Coke, which I would only have if I'm in the desert, and there's nothing to drink. But who says that I'm wrong, that I'm right and that person is wrong? You pair up with what you like, what makes you feel comfortable. I've always said, to me, my favorite pairing is coffee with a good cigar at 6 o'clock in the morning. Anybody who sees my Instagram says, how can you smoke an Opus at 6 o'clock in the morning or another cigar at 4 o'clock in the morning while I'm in an airport that I'm going to travel? First of all, because I have a very high tolerance scale and I can handle it. But I dislike, I don't like to use the word hate, but I dislike when people badmouth a cigar, and especially when people criticize the pairing of a cigar with something else. And I think that's something that Keith, that I met him, he seems like a nice guy, even though a lot of people say he isn't. I think he can elaborate on that as a final thought.
Keith, yeah? Are you there?
I am, yeah, sorry.
Did you get the question?
No, I didn't.
He wasn't listening.
So,
he was just enamoured by you. He's so enamoured by you.
I think as they were saying, you know, a lot of people say that they'll diss a cigar based on their
yeah, absolutely. I have no idea here. Sorry. Yes, I mean, going back to that point, yes. I mean, with anything we enjoy, whether it be, you know, a glass of orange juice out of the fridge, nobody can tell you how to drink it. Everything is subjective, how you receive it, how you enjoy it. It's a very important part. I mean, there's whiskies you've probably tasted tonight that some you may enjoy, some you mightn't. But there's other people, of course, who actually might think the Sovereign is, out of all of those whiskies tonight, the most straightforward, because that's the style of whiskey you like. We all like different things, absolutely. For me, I like the diversity and the consistency within the range of whiskies. And that's what I always try to look for in a range of products that are from the one kind of brand or creator, is there'll always be a key element that is consistent in it. With Arturo Fuente, the consistency of the draw, how well the cigars are made, that medium body, and that kind of mixture between sweet and savory. There doesn't have to be too many intense tasting notes to be able to appreciate kind of some simple principles of a product like that.
Agreed. I can give you my personal opinion, because I agree very much with Jose, and I think that the problem is with social media today, everyone has an opinion. Okay, but to diss another cigar and call it trash, as a lot of people do, is really terribly wrong. As you say, it's subjective. It may suit one person, it doesn't suit another. I know some brands that we sell, not our brands, but we sell, that are big brands worldwide, and we sell a lot of, and people trash them on the internet in such disparaging terms. I find it fascinating, and I think maybe there's just too many keyboard warriors out there that want to maybe get a reaction. And I think it's terribly unfair because, as Jose said, you know, somebody actually owns that brand. Somebody maybe put their house on the line building that brand, and it's probably a very successful brand despite or in spite of, you know, people making disparaging comments. And it's pretty horrendous. It's quite a nasty place out there in some areas of social media, without any doubt at all. I remember some years ago, on the UK Cigar Forum, somebody said they'd smoked an Inca Secret Blend cigar, which is our brand, and it was the worst cigar they had ever tasted in their life. The draw was fine, but the flavour was just disgusting. And I thought, well, that's interesting. I'm selling 20,000 sticks a year in the tiny UK market, which is considered a ridiculous success in this small market. So I thought, well, how can this guy be right? It's just not a cigar for him, or he's an arsehole, one or the other, you know, probably both. And it just goes to what you're saying. You know, if you got an opinion that it's not for you, you just say, I smoke the cigar, it's just not for me. It's not a flavour profile I enjoy. But people really are kind of weird out there. It's really a crazy world on the internet.
Well, yeah, I mean, everybody has the right to express their opinion, but I mean, what if you're finding a product that you're not necessarily isn't your flavor profile or something you like, you can still have the kind of decency to appreciate the craft that has gone into the actual finished product that's in front of you.
100%. I'll give you one brand I can't smoke is Gurkha cigars. I just can't smoke them. They're strong, they're in your face. I've tried all different blends over the years, can't smoke them. Another one is Rocky. I can't smoke them. However, they both sell extremely well for us. So clearly they suit 99 out of 100 other smokers, just not for me. But I wouldn't turn around and say they're crap cigars. I just say it's not for me.
Exactly. Exactly.
Ruby, did you want to say something?
I'm sorry, he's got a question again. Let's see if we can get it.
Hang on, I hope you can hear me. So, my line of work is 3 ways. I do cigars, drinks evaluation, and shooting. And we have these people in these industries who start to kind of fight each other. And they have these horrible comments like, oh, that cigar is shit. I know it better. That's good. And I always say there's how many anti-smokers out there? Probably like 10,000 for each of us. How many anti-shooting people? Many. And I always say, you like this, so not your cup of tea. But please do not just comment like, oh, that's horrible, that's rubbish, that's stupid, that's not good for the industry. Because if you like, let's say I hate Fuente, it's a horrible brand, I only drink or smoke or do that. Stupid, because that is damaging to your own love and your own preference, what you're having. So it's stupid to do that, and I really don't like it. It's attention seeking, actually. It's attention seeking. People want to have the comments to go on the top of the thing. That's what they want to do. Nothing else. Stupid.
I think you're right. And on the matter of educating the consumer, Jose, I can tell you, we've been doing that for many years at C.Gars, mainly over our website and newsletters to clients. We've got 110,000 clients on our database. We have a big cigar library section on our website. We have been educating for years, so much so that New World sales are now 40% of our premium cigar sales to 60% Cuban. So that's a huge turnaround. And I think I'm very much a part of that whole process.
Oh, yeah, yeah. Let me tell you something. Short story. I've been in shops where a salesman that was just fired from another company or is mean has gone into the shop, 10, 12 people in the shop, and says, well, this company does this to the wrapper, they do this, they do that, blah, blah, blah. I wait till that salesman goes out into the parking lot, and I tell him, so-and-so, can I have a minute with you? Of course, Mr. Blanco, what? You just went into that shop. You badmouthed that company where you were fired, whether it was justified or unjustified, and said all the most horrible things you can say about tobacco. You just left 12 consumers, the owner and the manager and the clerk of the shop saying, who tells me that what he is saying, the company that you're representing now doesn't do it? And he said to me, I will never do it again. And I've done it with a lot of people. For you to sell a cigar, you don't have to badmouth another company. Just
Absolutely.
My opinion.
And you're right. You are right. Jose, it's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you so much for your time. We're very grateful. And we look forward to welcoming you in London and hopefully the northwest of England. So I don't think it's going to be this side of the new year, but certainly, hopefully early next year.
As long as I don't have to work with Anthony, because to be honest, he looks very suspicious. With Paul, I don't have a problem. Toby, if he's around, I don't have a problem. But with Anthony, I don't know. He gives me the scare. He looks like something out of a horror movie in that dark place where he is now.
I'm in the depths of Norfolk, and it's got very dark very, very quickly. But I think it's been possibly one of the most informative calls that we've had. So thank you very much for your time today, Jose. Thank you very much for your time as well, Keith.
No problem at all. No problem at all. It's a pleasure.
Keith.
Everyone else on the call, we have got another virtual Herf lined up with Casa Tarrant for the 22nd. Samplers are available with and without alcohol. So both options are available. We are just finalising the details for November's as well. And I'm sure Paul may even have some little teasers for those if he's got anything he can tell you. If not, he may be keeping quite quiet on them.
Early November will be the new Davidoff Robusto Intenso launch. Stock should be delivered to us next week, so that sampler will go live next week. But for the one in later October with the Casa Tarrant, we'll be with 2 rums from Key West, which C.Gars are actually importing, which is the Bad Bitch rum and also the raw unfiltered. You can find those under the virtual Herf sections on the website.
I'll stick it in the group for you all now. But yeah, thank you ever so much for everyone who joined. Like I said, we will be uploading this to YouTube. So if there's anything you've missed, I know it was lots of information for everyone, and I hope you've all sort of come away with something. I think for me, it's definitely the educational side of things is a massive thing. And it's as much about knowing what you don't like as what you do. And I think we were sort of saying about negative comments and things on YouTube, especially from an uninformed position. Someone goes, "Oh, I don't like Gurkha," or "Have you ever smoked one?" or anything like that. It's people just go with the flow on a lot of those things. I don't think there's much place for that. So that's why these virtual Herfs are a perfect opportunity to find out more about the brands. And it might be little kind of notes from the brand that you go, "You know what? I really like that about this brand, so that's going to be my go-to." But I think it's been definitely, like I said, one of the most informative and best calls that we've done. We've done a lot of these, and I'm looking forward to doing a lot more of them. So thank you all for your time. Jose, thank you ever so much, sir. I hopefully will speak to you soon. I'll try and be somewhere where it's light. I may even have a shave. I'll look more presentable. I promise you.
You look like you've escaped from somewhere.
This is always the thing. I think it's just the general look. It's the general look I've got.
Ghost story. And Nick will be back in his boat at the next Herf, I'm sure.
I hope so.
Anyway,
Good night, everybody.
Guys, thank you very much for the opportunity. Wishing everybody to be safe, and looking forward next year, if I'm allowed, if Mitchell and Paul and my good friend Anthony here will accept me, it will be my pleasure to spend a week with you guys and trying to do my best. So everybody, good night, be safe, God bless.
Take care. Thank you.
Goodbye. Have a nice
Thank
evening.
you.
See ya. Bye-bye.
Good night.
Good night. Good night.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
See ya.